How the rich hide dirty money and get away with it. The ultra-rich have a secret. They've been hiding billions of dollars right under the government's nose, completely legally and illegally, and most of them never face a single consequence. Before we get into the juicy stuff, let's establish what money laundering actually is. When criminals make money illegally, through drug trafficking, fraud, corruption, whatever it is, that money has a problem. It exists, but it can't be explained. You can't walk into a bank and deposit $1 million in cash without someone asking very serious questions. So criminals need a way to make dirty money look clean. They need to give it a legitimate story. That process is called money laundering. The term actually comes from Al Capone's era. Mobsters literally used laundromats as cash businesses to mix illegal money with legitimate income. But today, it's gotten a whole lot more sophisticated. There are 3 main stages every money launderer follows: placement, layering, and integration. Let's break each one down. One of the oldest and most effective tricks in the money laundering playbook is the cash business, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Here's how it works. Let's say you're a criminal making $50,000 a week from illegal activity. You can't just deposit that cash. Banks will ask questions, so instead you open a pizza shop. Now, your pizza shop genuinely sells pizza. But here's the trick. At the end of every week, you inflate your real sales numbers. Maybe your shop actually made $2,000 selling pizza, but on paper you report $20,000. You mix your dirty $50,000 in with the real pizza money, deposit it all together, and suddenly, that cash has a story. It came from pizza sales. The government can't prove otherwise because cash businesses don't have a paper trail for every single transaction. Nobody receipts every slice of pizza. And it gets smarter. You price your pizza slightly cheaper than competitors, so you always have real customers coming through the door. The business looks completely legitimate from the outside. Staff, a menu, health inspections, everything. But the real product being sold? Clean money. Bakeries work exactly the same way. Sold purely in cash, bread is cheap to make, and nobody questions why a busy bakery on a street corner is doing high volumes. Car washes are another classic. And not just because of Breaking Bad. Think about it. Hundreds of cars coming through daily, each paying cash. It's almost impossible for authorities to verify exactly how many cars were actually washed versus how many were reported. Tony Soprano did it with a pork store. Walter White did it with a car wash. But in real life, the Italian mafia ran this scheme through hundreds of restaurants across New York for decades. In the 1980s, the FBI discovered that a chain of pizza shops across the northeastern United States was being used to launder millions of dollars in heroin money. They called it the Pizza Connection. Over $1.6 billion was laundered through ordinary pizza restaurants. The owners looked like hardworking small business people. Nobody suspected a thing. The beauty of this method from a criminal's perspective is its simplicity. No offshore accounts. No complex shell companies. Just a pizza oven, some flour, and a cash register. Once the money is inside the financial system, criminals move to stage 2, layering. This is where it gets really complicated. The goal here is to put as much distance between the money and its criminal origin as possible. They do this by moving money through a complex web of transactions, accounts, and shell companies across multiple countries. A shell company is basically a legal business entity that exists only on paper. It has no real operations, no real employees. It's just a vehicle to move money around. Here's how it works in practice. A criminal deposits dirty money into a shell company in country A. That company loans the money to another shell company in country B. That company invests it into real estate in country C. By the time anyone tries to follow the money trail, it's virtually impossible. You're chasing a ghost through 20 different countries and 50 different bank accounts. And then there's smurfing. This is where criminals break large amounts of cash into hundreds of small deposits across different banks and different accounts, keeping each deposit just under the threshold that triggers automatic government reporting. One person doing this looks suspicious. But a network of 50 people each making small deposits across 100 different banks? Nearly impossible to detect. One of the most famous examples of layering? The Panama Papers. In 2016, a massive leak revealed how thousands of wealthy individuals and criminals used offshore shell companies in Panama to hide trillions of dollars. Politicians, celebrities, business people, world leaders, all using layers of companies to obscure where their money was really coming from. It shook the entire global financial system. The final stage is integration, and this is where dirty money officially becomes clean money. By this point, the cash has been placed into the system and layered through so many transactions that its origins are completely obscured. Now, the criminal can bring it back into the legitimate economy and spend it freely. Real estate is the biggest method. Criminals love buying luxury properties, especially paying cash. It's It's a large single transaction that absorbs huge amounts of money, and real estate almost always appreciates in value. You buy a $10 million mansion with dirty cash, sit on it for 2 years, sell it, and now you have $10 million in completely clean, legitimate money sitting in your bank account. Luxury assets are another favorite. High-end art, yachts, watches, cars. The art market specifically is notoriously unregulated. You can buy a painting for $5 million and nobody is legally required to ask where that money came from. Criminals use anonymous art auctions constantly to move massive amounts of dirty money. Cryptocurrency has become increasingly popular too. While crypto transactions are recorded on the blockchain, sophisticated criminals use mixers and privacy coins to completely obscure the trail. You put dirty money in one end, clean, untraceable crypto comes out the other. And once the money is fully integrated, it looks completely legitimate. The criminal pays taxes on it, invests it openly, and lives lavishly, all with a paper trail that looks perfectly clean. To the outside world, they're just a successful businessman. Let's look at some real-world cases that show just how staggering this gets. First, Pablo Escobar. At the height of his operation, the Medellin cartel was making an estimated $420 million per week. That's not a typo. Per week. Escobar was making so much money, he literally couldn't spend it fast enough. He reportedly buried cash in fields across Colombia and wrote off 10% of his annual income just from rats eating the banknotes. 10% of billions just eaten by rats. He used thousands of small businesses, real estate and offshore accounts to launder his billions, but even then the sheer volume was unmanageable. Second, the 1MDB scandal. This is one of the biggest financial frauds in history. Over $4.5 billion was stolen from Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund and laundered through shell companies, luxury real estate, a super yacht that cost $250 million, and incredibly, it even funded a Hollywood blockbuster. The Wolf of Wall Street, a movie literally about financial fraud, was partially funded by laundered money. The irony is almost poetic. Third, and this one is shocking, HSBC. In 2012, one of the world's biggest and most respected banks was fined $1.9 billion after it was revealed that Mexican and Colombian drug cartels had used the bank to launder hundreds of millions of dollars. The bank had ignored massive red flags for years. Tellers were literally handing cash-filled boxes through teller windows specifically designed to fit the dimensions of Mexican drug cartel cash boxes. A global bank helping cartels for years. So how do governments actually fight money laundering? The main weapon is anti-money laundering regulation, AML. Banks and financial institutions are legally required to monitor transactions and report anything suspicious to government authorities. Large cash deposits, unusual transaction patterns, transactions involving high-risk countries, all of it gets flagged. The Financial Action Task Force, FATF, is an international body that sets global standards for fighting money laundering. Countries that don't comply get blacklisted, which effectively cuts them off from the global financial system. Banks also use Know Your Customer rules, KYC, which require them to verify the identity of every single customer and understand where their money is coming from. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to admit. Despite all these systems, all these regulations, all these international task forces, criminals still successfully launder an estimated 90% of dirty money. 90%. The system is fighting a battle it's constantly losing, because for every new regulation governments create, criminals find 3 new ways around it. And that's how the rich hide dirty money and get away with it. From pizza shops in New York to offshore shell companies in Panama to luxury art auctions in London, the system is more sophisticated and more widespread than most people ever realize. If this video opened your eyes, make sure you subscribe to The Wealth Code.